everyone, and welcome to today's DataVox webinar using mass communication in rapidly changing conditions, presented by Singlewire. My name is Jessica, and I will be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this webinar through Cisco WebEx events, and the audio can be heard through your PC or by calling into the phone number listed and with the access code provided in your confirmation email or calendar invite for this event. Today's webinar is being recorded on behalf of DataVox, and participation in this event indicates your consent to being included in that recording. All attendees will receive an email with the link to the completed recording 24 to 48 hours post-event. If you have any questions for the presenters at any time during this presentation, you may submit those questions via the Q&A feature to the bottom right of your screen. This should already be turned on. Simply click Q&A and the text box will appear. Our panel will be responding to these questions throughout the presentation via text and verbally at the conclusion of the presentation. If you are in need of support or have a question not pertaining to today's topic, please utilize the chat feature and I will be happy to assist you. This feature is separate from the Q&A feature and can be turned on by clicking the chat bubble in the lower center of your screen. Now that we have reviewed the features of this webinar, we would like to start off today's presentation with a few words from our VP of Sales, Greg Smith. Greg, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our webinar today. And if you've joined us before for some of our other webinars, really appreciate you guys tuning in. Today, as Jessica mentioned, we'll be talking about another return to work technology and solution to help you guys integrate back into the workforce. And hopefully we'll all pretty soon get back to the old norm would be kind of nice. And so that's what we're up to here at DataVox. You can kind of see I've got my handy, I'm back in the office as of this week and have my handy sanitizer here and working under all kinds of new requirements and new restrictions and those types of things. And as part of this series that we put on, we've brought to light a few really innovative solutions that are helping us accomplish our goals for integrating our workforce back into the workplace. A couple of key ones, if you didn't see them live, are on our website. I'll highlight just a couple of those really quickly. One of them is an application called Density, which allows us to control and monitor in real time the occupancy level of our facilities. So as you guys are integrating back into the workforce, you may set goals on a week-to-week basis of maybe 25% occupancy this week, and maybe it's 50% the next week. But how do you control that in real time? Density is a great application for that. We also integrated an application called Fever's thermal imaging technology, which is a camera that in real time, as we enter our facility, measures our skin temperature and determines whether we are potentially running a fever or not. And it's a really quick and easy process for us to bring employees in and for them to feel really confident that they're coming into a safe work environment. And Singlewire, who we're going to focus on today, is just another one of those really key tools. But if you didn't see the Density webinar or the Fever thermal imaging webinar, make sure to check those out on our website. We've recorded those and they're archived there for you to view, or reach out to your DataVox account manager and they'll help you get the information that you're looking for. As mentioned today, the focus is around Singlewire's Informacast solution, and it's a platform that we've actually leveraged for our business continuity planning for many years. It's sort of key and critical to that component of our business. And it's been obviously very helpful in this time with the COVID crisis and how we communicate to our employees that are in any number of different situations out in the field and on different platforms. And we'll go into more detail on that as we go through it today. But it was something that we used before COVID as well for things like tornadoes and hurricanes and medical emergencies that we had within our facility and things of that nature. So again, a really critical component to our overall strategy, and I think could be a critical component to your business continuity strategy moving forward. So with that, over to Pat to give us some more color on the solution.
All right, thank you, Greg. And my name is Pat Shekel, and just including this picture so you can understand what I look like back when it was possible to get a haircut. We're based in Madison, Wisconsin. And we're still under our Safer at Home initiative. I know things are different everywhere. What we're going to talk about today is really what we're seeing in the marketplace, what we're seeing people do when it comes to mass notification, including what's actually being sent by our customers out there, the Informacast users. We're going to talk a little bit about how we expect things to evolve with the notification landscape. We expect it to be somewhat of a hybrid environment of the way things were before, the way things are now, at least for a while. And that's one of the reassuring things, if there is one, about our solution and how it fits into this new normal that we're living in, is that, we, of course, were around for a long time doing mass notification before the pandemic. We have a way to help you during the pandemic, and then the use cases that are applicable afterwards are very strong as well. So it's not as if you're making a point solution purchase that you would really only be able to leverage while this is going on. So a little bit about us. This is a look at some of our team here. Again, based in Madison, Wisconsin. We have people all over, including one of our guys, Tom Hewitt in Texas, who is on the call with us as well, and will be helping to answer some of the questions when we get down into that phase of the presentation later. So we have about 110 people. We've been doing this quite a while. We've been on the Cisco Global Price List for well over a decade, and that gives us the international reach. So about 60 countries, about 7,000 customers total. And just for what it's worth, we are still very much in business, even though we're operating under the safer at home order. Our development and QA teams are as productive as ever. We leverage a lot of the technologies that DataVox puts into customers all day, every day. So many of our people were already working from home, especially sales, but also some of our customer success or support people have always worked from home. And flipping the switch for the rest of us to work from home while this is ongoing was not a difficult one. So we've been very much, full steam ahead throughout the course of this virus disruption. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the product up front, just so you get an idea of what we do. Then I'm going to talk about the trends, and I'll come back to the product a little bit at the end. So this is what we call our any-to-any diagram. It shows the things that we can send from on the left in yellow, and the things that we send to in green on the right. And you can see there's a variety of different things that can trigger a message, both manual or automated. Automated things like National Weather Service feeds, inputs from your physical security system, your access control system, your video surveillance system, gunshot detection sensors. Earthquakes, probably not quite as much of a concern where you're at, but weather certainly is. And then the manual triggers, just hitting a button on a phone, a keyboard desktop shortcut, sending from your mobile device, all of those things are easily done as well. And then what really separates us from every other solution out on the market is that almost all of them are focused on that lower right mobile piece, right? So the ability to send bulk SMS text messages, emails, phone calls from the cloud, and send push notifications to an app that runs on iOS or Android, everybody does that. We do it too. It's not a differentiator. We've been doing the on-premises piece for a very long time, and that is something that is a differentiator in the sense that we can do that as well as mobile. And then you bring in the collaboration piece, so tying into those tools that now people are using more and more every day, things like Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx Teams. So it's that combination of on-premises and mobile. And the reason that's important is because that just gives you a more effective notification. When you're talking about a lot of different use cases, speed is very important. Reach, or what percentage of my desired population can I reach, is also very important. So it's that combination of speed and reach that differentiates us. And the way that we achieve that is because we can do the on-premises and the mobile together. And if you have an event like a severe weather event, if you have an active shooter event, if you have something that requires immediate attention, then having that combination of on-premises plus mobile becomes even more important. Now, going forward, and looking at the world we live in right now, mobile has become more important for the meantime, but on-premises, as we'll see, is still very important and becomes increasingly so as people start to return to work. So we'll get into that here in a minute. So looking at what mass notification looks like during the pandemic, the business continuity risk is a really big deal. So how do you communicate with your people in real time when they're distributed everywhere? When some are coming into the building, some aren't. Conditions are changing. Maybe you're open one day and then someone tests positive, and then you have to, at the very last minute, close. And this happened at a business 2 blocks from my home where they had to let everybody know that no one could come into work the next day. They had to do a 2-day deep clean because they had a positive test case. And you don't know when that's going to happen. That doesn't happen on a schedule, right? So getting in touch with everybody out of band, when they're at home, the power to reach them on mobile and to do something, far more effective than email, and also the ability to get a message confirmation back so that you know that they received it is really important. So there's a lot of nuance to what's going on here. How you reach people, how you get a message back from them, how you track what's happening, and how you share that information with people to manage it. And so it's that ongoing incident management piece that comes into play here as well. So issues that are facing all of us right now, regardless of where we are that people are getting sick. And if you're fortunate, if you're in an area that hasn't had an outbreak or has have just a handful of cases, maybe this isn't affecting you. But as we open up, we expect there's probably going to be some hot spots, right? And you want to be prepared for that. You want to be able to communicate with your people in real time, very quickly, to get answers back. While we're doing this Safer at Home initiative, or whatever you might be calling it where you are, and that can change, on a city by city, county by county basis, as well as a state by state basis, we know that people are working unusual hours, and at least that's our experience, and from others we've talked to, our customers and so forth, it's their experience as well. And the reason that is because you have, there's a guy on my team whose wife is a nurse, a critical care nurse, so now he's got the kids, schools are closed, and so during the day he's kind of juggling, he's not getting a lot done. He's time shifted some of his work and is working more in the evenings. So he's stretching out an 8-hour workday across, closer to 12 or 14 hours. We know that revenues are impacted for a lot of businesses. So you're trying to do less, trying to do more with less, because budgets are impacted. Communication isn't the same as it was. Some of the things that you used to do just are no longer working because people aren't as available, or you're not all on the same tools. And we've always known that emails are really ineffective. It's the reason you send an email, a mass email, is to kind of check a box and to say that you notified everybody, but the likelihood that everyone is going to read, comprehend, and take the desired action on an email is very low. So we're learning that mobile notifications are much more important, especially the two-way communication variety. So what we're seeing is that people are leveraging mobile. They're getting in touch with people wherever they are, which more often than not right now is at home. But again, as places are opening up, a lot of states lifted their at-home orders just yesterday, and we expect that to happen more and more. And then again, because of the way this virus hasn't gone away, right, and the virus has other plans for us, so it's going to keep trying to attack, and you're going to see things happen. You're going to see people fall sick, and you're going to see people take reaction to that, and that's going to cause second and third order effects. So you can expect to see kind of some starts and stops, if you will, for a while. We certainly hope that doesn't happen. It'd be great if we just go back to the way things were before this arrived on our shores, but we know that that's not likely the case for a while. So in-building notification at this very moment is a little less important, with healthcare being the big exception. But we're also seeing, in places like manufacturing, especially in food processing, that they've been designated essential. They're working in close quarters. We've had a number of customers come to us and ask us for real-time notification for health and wellness checks. And we have a few examples of that as we go forward. So this was the big food processing plant in South Dakota that shut down because they had a big outbreak. And this has been repeated in a number of places. It happened at another plant in Minnesota, at a pork processing plant in Minnesota. It happened in Green Bay, and then it happened in Illinois and in Iowa as well. So those are just the ones that I've seen just from paying a little bit of attention to the news. I'm sure it's happening all over. And so this idea that people have gone out, you don't even know who can come to work the next day, right? So it's the health and wellness check. We had one customer that said, we want to be able to send a notification out to all of our employees. And we want them, if they're feeling healthy, want them to reply to us. We want to send them in through a separate door. And then we want to check anyone who isn't quite sure. Of course, we're going to tell those people to stay home if they're not feeling well, but we want We want to be able to sort people in advance and give a passcode to those who attest that they are definitely healthy, have no issues whatsoever. And one of the reasons they were doing that, they weren't even shut down yet. One of the reasons they were doing it because they had a situation where it was taking them way too long to get people into the building just to start the shift. So they were losing up to a half hour of each shift just getting workers into the building because they were having to ask them questions, give temperature scans, et cetera. So they wanted to do anything that they could to just cut down the amount of time it took people to get into the building. So what we're seeing is that collaboration platform integration is also key. So we talked about mobile, and mobile, for plant workers, it's typically SMS. We have the ability to send push notifications to an Apple or Android app. That's very common as well. Is a little bit more of a feature-rich experience because you can have audio in there as well as an image, whereas SMS text messaging is just going to be text, and then you can, of course, have a message confirmation. For example, 1, I'm healthy; 2, I'm having symptoms, that sort of thing. So those are the two main methods of mobile, but what we're finding is that more and more people are spending time in collaboration platforms. So just a couple of quick stats from Microsoft and Cisco in just the rapid adoption. A lot of this is tools that people already had, but they hadn't been using extensively, so just driving up usage, but there is new adoption as well. And what this means is that getting in touch with those people in the apps that they're using is another option. And we have integrations with both Microsoft and Cisco that allow us to pop a notification into that feed, into either of those clients, whether those clients are running on your laptop or desktop, or those clients are running as an app on your mobile device. And that makes it very easy to get people's attention there. The other thing that allows us to do is to manage the ongoing incident. So when you think about a number of different cases, number of different use cases or scenarios, you're not just sending a message and then forgetting about it. It might be if it's informational. You might set up a scheduled notification that just reminds people to wash their hands, to wear their masks and gloves and so on. But for a lot of things, you're sending it because of a particular scenario, and it's not a one and done. You're sending it out, and then you're wanting to follow up with results of a confirmation, or you're wanting to follow up with a number of things, and you're wanting to manage that with a key group of stakeholders. Maybe it's your business continuity team, for example. So they want to be able to see the results of that scenario coming back in real time. They want to be able to manage it. And being able to have the notifications and the dashboard tied into those tools that you use every day from Microsoft or Cisco is something that we're seeing people do more and more as well. So now I'm going to walk you through just a handful of scenarios showing you what customers have actually sent out of InformaCast. So these are actual messages. They may have been sanitized to remove identifiable information, but otherwise they're actual messages that have been sent by our customers to their end users. So this is one being sent by a healthcare system in the Southwest, and they're really concerned about having caregivers show up and not be healthy. And I think you say, well, they should know better. They're healthcare workers, but I think a lot of us, it's innate that you just want to go to work. You feel you don't want to let your teammates down. You feel you have a duty to do so. And so over a long period of time, prior to the pandemic, it was just ingrained in us, like, I got to go to work. I might be a little bit under the weather, but I'm probably not contagious, and I'm going to go to work. Well, that's changed entirely. Right now, if you're not feeling well at all, you don't want to take the chance of infecting someone else. So we want to know if you're really healthy or not. So what they're doing is they're sending out this message, and it has a confirmation on there. So they're going through a link that takes them, in their case, to an intranet site where they're putting in a badge number and then clicking the link and confirming that they're healthy. So that's one way of handling it. We have other people that are responding with a 1 or a 2, and then you can get the pie chart changing. You can follow up with a message to the different cohorts. So one message that goes to the healthy people, another message that goes to the people that say they have symptoms, and so forth. This is another example of a message that was being sent where they wanted people to know exactly what their sick leave options were. And again, the reason they're doing this is because they really wanted people to know that, hey, you have paid sick leave. In other words, you don't have to come to work to get paid. In this particular example, if they didn't have it before, they have it now. And that's a big deal, because if people thought they might not get paid, they would probably come to work. Some percentage of them would probably still come to work even if they were sick. So this is an example of something where they're using that to try to keep their workforce healthy. And here's another one where they're asking people to check their internet for the latest COVID-19 update. And then here's a bunch of others. And there's one that isn't on here. It's probably my favorite one, which is, you may have seen the hospital in New York, that every time a patient successfully healed enough to get off of a ventilator, they played that Alicia Keys' Empire State of Mind song. And it was celebratory. So it's not all doom and gloom, right? So this is an example of celebrating the successes of an organization. In this case, it was a healthcare provider in New York State, right at the epicenter of where this is happening. And they would send out this alert, and they had it programmed into a speed dial, so it was very easy to trigger. They'd walk up to a handset, trigger it, and it would come out over the overhead and over their IP phones and broadcast that audio. And everyone knew when they heard that song that someone had beat COVID and had come off a ventilator successfully. So that's a big deal. That went a little bit viral, made the nightly news, and Alicia Keys tweeted about it because they're using her song and so on. So that's probably my favorite one, a story of hope. Here you see a number of others, where in this case, a customer of ours had a building shut down due to a positive case, and then they had to send another notification out when they reopen. And clearly that's important, because if that notification is timely and reaches everyone, then one, you make sure that they're going to get the information, they're not going to show up at work. And just as important, if not more importantly, they're going to get the message that, hey, it's time to come back to work, and so you're not losing time on the back end either. And you can see desktop pop-ups are a big one. We have a number of ways of doing that. The collaboration tools that I mentioned earlier. We also have something called the Informacast Desktop Notifier, which pops to the front of the screen in front of all the other windows. So there's no way that you're going to miss it. It can play audio out the speakers as well. So desktop notification is something that's becoming more and more important. So we did a survey 2 weeks ago to our install base, and now I'm going to share with you what we found out from them. Just 4 questions I'm going to share here. You look at how often people are sending out communications to their team. You can see about half are sending daily or weekly, and a bunch are just sending as needed, as something pops up. When you look at what communication channels people are using when they begin back to work, which again, happening in a lot of places, still a week or 2 away in some others. But when you look at what they're doing, SMS, email, and again, you say, well, I was disparaging email a moment ago for good reason. Email is still a viable channel. It just shouldn't be the only channel, right? It's a secondary channel. And that's one of the things that we preach here is, you have an important message, you want to send it out via a wide variety of channels. You can send it out via all of these at once if you wanted to, with a single message very easily. But it's really about choosing those that are appropriate for the situation. So if it's not an emergency, you're not going to spray everybody on every channel. If it is an emergency, you are. And when we walk people through our discovery workbook process, it's all about choosing what is the content I'm sending for a particular use case, severe weather, let's say. Who's going to receive the message? Who gets to send the message? What content is being sent? And what do I want to have happen after the fact? Is it just informational, no follow-up? Is it a message confirmation? And then based on the responses, I might take 2 different actions. So it kind of forks off from there. And then I'm going to manage the ongoing incident. So we have templates that walk people through all of that. But what you're seeing here is how people are looking at this. Once people are back to work, you're going to see the IP phone broadcast, desktop, and overhead paging bump up a little bit more than it is currently. People are still very much in that mobile mindset. And you can see, a lot of people are saying they're going to use one-way, but more than a third are saying two-way notification is important to them. And then we see a quarter of them are saying that having that collaboration capability, again, with the Cisco or Microsoft collaboration tools, is important as well. And so what use cases are we looking at? Medical alerts, half. General alerts, 2/3. Weather, still very important. Building closures, very important. Not something that would have scored all that highly before the virus. So just gives you a flavor for what types of messages our install base is seeing out there. So looking forward to the future, and I'm sure you're all looking forward to it as much as I am. What are we seeing out there? Mobile and on-premises is very much the future. And, as most of us are still working from home more than we used to, you say, well, isn't mobile the most important? Right now it is, but we really believe that the combination of the two, the combination of mobile and on-premises is very important because there are a lot of use cases for which intrusive audio is really important. And you're going to get that through those on-premises devices. Broadcasting out the IP speakers, broadcasting out the phone, not calling it, just broadcasting out the speakers. Doesn't have to even be touched. Broadcasting out the laptop and broadcasting out the speakers of the desktop and laptop computers. If you have an existing overhead paging system, using that. So intrusive audio is really effective. And the reason we say that is because it gets people's attention, right? We all get so many messages on our mobile phone. Things are popping up all the time. If it's a text message, you'll get it eventually. Some people get it sooner than others, are more in tune to that. But there are lots of reasons. Phones in a bag or briefcase turned off, poor cell phone coverage areas, notification overload, all sorts of reasons why mobile alone isn't going to get it done in things like an active shooter, things like a tornado, when seconds really count. You want to have the ability to really get in touch with people very quickly. So on-premises plus mobile is still very much the future. When you look at those different use cases, the remote worker notification is going to be important for a while. Even as we open up, we're still going to have a higher percentage of people working remotely, at least in most industries and in most geographies. So getting in touch with people is going to be important. Again, for all those reasons we talked about, get a positive case. Something happens, around the workplace, you're going to want to let people know as they work remotely. We want to send out regular health advisories. We see customers doing things like sending reminders about health and sanitation best practices. Wear your mask in the common area. Wash your hands frequently. Use hand sanitizer when you go in and out of a conference room, etc. There's all sorts of things that we're seeing people send. So those health advisories, which really were never a concern before for most of us, are now very much front and center. Unfortunately, we still have to live with things out of our control, like active shooter alerts and things like severe weather alerts. And so keeping people on top of those is important. One of our most popular use cases has always been a call for help button, call it a panic button. And that can be on a desk phone. It can be on a mobile phone. It can be a physical button that's attached to the wall or maybe even flush mounted underneath a desk. Those are very popular, and we live in a very uncertain world, and there are particular people that are in more vulnerable physical locations where someone comes in off the street, they're the first line of defense, so to speak, and you want to give them the ability to call for help very easily. So there's a number of use cases there where that comes into play, and that functionality, that panic button functionality, has always been very important. 911 internal alerting, so the ability to notify people when 911 has been dialed. We have a manufacturing customer where there was a huge plant floor. There's a plant worker who was going into cardiac arrest, but was able to get to one of the handsets hanging on a pole on the plant floor, dialed 911, and then he collapsed. But because they were running our software, we have a feature called Call Aware that monitors calls made to emergency numbers like 911. And so the guard shack saw that 911 had been dialed. knew where it happened, ran out to the plant floor, saw what was going on, grabbed the defibrillator off of the wall, and shocked him back to life before EMS even arrived on the property. So, a real example there of where seconds count and why it's so important to have that sort of integration with your phone system. And then facilities integration. The Internet of Things is still very alive and well, and tying those systems together, going back to leveraging what you already have. We're sending audio and text messages across all these devices you already have, and we're getting input triggers from devices you already have. Things like your physical surveillance, access control system, video surveillance system, all of those things can trigger into InformaCast. And there's a number of ways of doing it. So we'd like to think of ourselves as a Swiss Army knife notification. And if the scissors doesn't work, the corkscrew might, right? So if you can do an API integration, you can send us an RSS feed, you can send us an email. There's lots of different ways to inbound trigger. So we've always been about safety. This is a slide that was before the pandemic. It'll be viable after the pandemic. Things happen quickly. They happen in a lot of places. As I said at the top, we're based in Madison, Wisconsin. We're on the far west side. We're in what we can consider to be a relatively safe area. There was a mass shooting on our street about half a mile down at another software company about a year and a half ago. It was very fortunate. There were 10 or 11 people shot. They all lived, except for the shooter, because law enforcement came in and took care of him. But you just never know when things are going to happen. And similarly with severe weather events, they come up very quickly. And depending on what they are, others don't come up as quickly but are much more persistent in the case of, say, hurricanes, right? So they all share one common theme, and that's that communication, and especially rapid and intrusive communication, is very important. So back to, again, what we call our any-to-any slide. And I was talking about integration with IoT devices, physical security systems, and so forth. Just point out that across the bottom there, the inbound triggers, you get an idea of how versatile the platform is in terms of being able to talk to existing systems. Because there are so many ways to trigger into it, we have that capability. So, again, it's all about using what you already have, doing very rapid notifications that are intrusive and grab people's attention so they take the action that you expect them to take. And we achieve that by sending to both on-premises and the mobile devices. And then we give you the ability to see what's happening and to manage that ongoing incident by using the collaboration tools that you use every day from Cisco or from Microsoft. So transitioning a little bit to the product interface, this is Command Center. Command Center is just a view inside of the web interface, the administrative web console inside InformaCast Fusion. And it does a few things, but the two most important are that it gives you a very easy way to send. So this is something where you can create what we call scenarios. Each of those tiles there, all clear, hazmat incident, etc. Those are considered scenarios. When you click that button, it'll pop up some questions. You answer those questions, and it'll send out the alert. The questions it asks are entirely your own. So what location is this happening in? Where do you want to send it to? That sort of thing. And you can send multiple messages from one scenario. So the idea being that if I had a severe weather emergency, maybe I send one message to all of my people letting them know what's happening. I send a separate message to a particular group that's managing the incident. So with that, I think Greg has a couple of examples that he'd like to talk to relative to this.
Thanks, Pat. So Pat, are you finished? Is this the end of the presentation?
We got a little bit more, but go ahead.
Okay. I was just, as you were going through the some of your examples, some things kind of rang true for us, and just wanted to share some ways that we're using Singlewire internally. One of those is around, as we enter through these different phases of a return to work strategy, internally what we're doing is we're hosting town hall meetings to share that information with people and give them an opportunity to do Q&A and those types of things on the same platform that we're using today to present information, do Q&A. But we're leveraging Singlewire as a mechanism to alert everybody in real time about the event, about it starting in a few minutes, and even sending out the link directly to the event. So delivering that over SMS, that's been really successful for us. But at the beginning, I also mentioned a couple of other really critical technologies that we've integrated to help support our work from home strategy or return to work strategy. And one of those being the density application, which monitors the number of people within our facility. And as we move through different phases, we can set certain thresholds for where we want to be. Well, that has an API integration that can be integrated to Singlewire. And if we should get beyond a certain threshold, let's just say that 25% occupancy is our current goal this week. And as we move beyond that, there's a great dashboard for being able to see that in real time, but someone may not be looking at that dashboard all the time. And so the ability to take that through an API integration, integrate it into Singlewire, and then send to a core group of people a notification that, hey, we're at 27% occupancy right now, and we were looking for 25%. Just another example. And then I also mentioned Pat, as you're going through your examples, and the facility that was having trouble getting people into the facility quickly and using notifications and responses to be able to determine who might be sick or who may not be sick. And obviously that's sort of an honor policy deal, and that could be effective for certain organizations. That process we talked about within our own facility for using thermal imaging to be able to read the temperature immediately of an individual as they walk through the facility. And then again, through an API integration with Singlewire, it's that glue that brings it all together. We could then send a notification to HR or to some other group of people when we have a scenario where someone's entered the facility and they're running a temperature and those types of things. And obviously there's some legal ramifications to that component, but just another example of how we use Singlewire as that glue to mesh everything together. We've also done integrations we've got a physical security practice and card access and locking down facilities, sending notifications to digital signage through our audiovisual practice. So really it's just such an integral part and such a, effectively kind of a middleware or glue that glues all these technologies together. It's pretty amazing and a very integral part of our technology stack and how we bring the technologies together.
Fantastic examples, Greg. I love it. Especially just talking about the world we're living in this very moment and tying together some of those technologies to make it easier for businesses to reopen safely. So I'll go through just a handful more of slides and examples here, and then we'll turn over fully to Q&A. So desktop notification, again, very important. And we have a lot of people coming to us to desktop notification before the pandemic. It's all the more important now because it is intrusive. It can pop to the front. In healthcare, we see people scrolling across as a banner because they don't want to obscure. They may be performing surgery or something like that. They don't want to obscure the screen. But that's your option in terms of how you want it to go. There's 4 different ways that it can present itself on the screen. Collaboration tool integration, as I mentioned, very important. And because we're cloud-based, primarily cloud-based, as are Microsoft Teams and Cisco WebEx teams, turning those on and integrating the two is a very simple process and something that can be done very rapidly. We have some really great examples. There's a long-term healthcare facility in the Pacific Northwest. They needed to get this running. They contacted us on a Friday afternoon. It was urgent. We got them up and running before the weekend. Not everyone's going to receive that level of service, but that was pretty extraordinary. Had another one in the UK, one of the National Health Service sites, where they were able to, in less than 3 days, they were able to get up and running for 10,000 users with 0 downtime. So it's different than it used to be, right? In terms of leveraging these cloud platforms. And then once we do all start working and using our on-site devices again, just a few examples of things that we tie into. So leveraging what you already have in some key areas, your IoT devices, your IP speakers, your panic buttons, your digital signage. Many of you probably already have these. You want to be able to tie in. If your brand isn't represented here, there's probably still a good chance we can talk to it because all of our stuff is based on open standards. And just a handful of customers in each industry, just to give you a feeling for what we're doing in terms of taking care of a wide variety of businesses and organizations, large and small. So I think with that, we'll stop the sharing here. If you do want to get in touch with us, we're at singlewire.com, and you can email sales@singlewire.com to get in touch with us very quickly. Just an easy to remember email alias there for you. And with that, we'll pause and we'll go to Q&A.
Good afternoon, Pat. This is Tom Hewitt. Folks, thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon for this webinar series. We have some excellent questions that have come in, Pat. One of the first ones, it would relate around mobile alerting, and the question is, what happens if the end user device is in airplane mode or in mute? Can the system override and still send the alert to that mobile device?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the short answer is no. We have to respect the device's notification settings. That's something that Apple and Android require of us in order to be part of their app store. So we can't override those settings, but it really demonstrates why you need to have more than one communication method, right? So you think about, if I'm only reaching people on mobile phones via SMS, then I'm going to be subject to mute or do not disturb or being shut off. If I hit the user on the mobile device and desktop and a few other notification methods, I just have a better chance of reaching.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Another question that come in that you did answer was somebody asked or commented you showed panic buttons on your slide, and they wanted to know how people are using those. They replied back that you did a great job of explaining both the physical panic buttons as well as the soft key panic button capability that can be created on a Cisco phone. There's another question that came in. This question is, we have operations along the entire Gulf Coast. Is it possible to send like a hurricane update just to the area that could be affected? For example, our Corpus Christi facility.
Yeah, the short answer is yes, absolutely. So you can, with a polygon and with geocodes, you can designate where you want the alerts to be sent to and from. And what I mean by that is, if you're looking for a particular county or a particular region, you're only going to monitor the National Weather Service feed for applicability of the alert to that region. You don't want people in Houston getting alerts for Dallas or people in Galveston getting alerts for San Antonio and so on, right? So you're gonna set up that alerting filter inside of InformaCast. So you're going to alert the people at the facility about things that are affecting that facility and only that facility. Now, if you wanted to have, say, corporate security know about all of those things, you have that ability too, right? So you're not limited in that way. But typically, people are applying a filter by geography.
Perfect. Thank you, Pat. Another question that came in, and I can address this as well, but I thought maybe everyone participating would want to hear this. They said your software, your InformaCast, looks very interesting. Does Singlewire allow customers to do trials of this software to validate that it would actually work in our environment? Yes, we do that. We can do that several ways. We can do a full proof of concept on the InformaCast Fusion product that Pat just spoke about, as well as we're offering to any customer now, because of the COVID-19 situation, a 60-day free of charge trial of our InformaCast mobile capability. And I would just suggest anyone that's interested in that, please reach out to your DataVox account manager, and they will be able to coordinate with myself to make this happen for your organization. And I think we might have had another question come in, Pat.
Yeah, I had a few that I wanted to bring up here. Is one of you asked correlation to your tracking multiple sites along the Gulf Coast. another similar question came up is, rather than assigning geocodes to a user, do you have the capability to have a user opt in and receive notifications based on where they're at the time?
Yes, yeah. So we do have something called an area of interest. So that's a geotag, geolocation feature. So you create a zone, and if the user is within that zone, then they can receive the notification. So that is under their control.
Okay, great. And one other was around your command center interface. So the interface that you can use to simply send notifications, their question was, is the only way to access that via the web page?
Yeah, great question. So you can access it via the Informacast mobile app as well. So those same scenarios that you saw as like chiclet tiles on the screen, you can have those on your mobile phone, and you can send them the same exact ones from your mobile phone, or you can send them from your collaboration tool, like Microsoft Teams or Cisco WebEx Teams. Those are accessible from there as well.
Okay, great.
Okay. The Q&A is still open, folks. If you have questions, please submit them, and we're happy to answer them for you.
While we're waiting for another question to come in there, Tom, one of the things I should point out is that on that question about the mobile phone being muted or turned off or do not disturb, and we talked about different notification channels. And one of the nice things about like the desktop notification app is it can always pop in front of all your other windows. It can also override that one. We can override the settings of the speaker. So if you have your audio turned off on your laptop, we'll still be able to play it. Same thing on like a Cisco handset. So the Cisco handset, we can override that, and you don't have to even touch it. I mean, it's just going to start playing audio. So in a sense, we're turning every Cisco handset into an emergency notification speaker. We can get to some handsets other than Cisco, but we have more functionality with the Cisco handset in that way because of our long-standing relationship.
I did have another question that came up, as you were mentioning that, is are you able to integrate with more than just an on-premise phone system?
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. So we do have the ability to tie into different cloud platforms as well.
Okay, I think that wraps up the Q&A. See anything else, Brett?
No, I'm not seeing anything else at the moment.
Yep. Nope. We look clear now, Greg.
Yep. So if there are any further questions from the attendees out there, please reach out to us at DataVox. We can follow up and help you answer those questions offline.
Perfect. I think we're over to you, Jessica.
Thank you so much, guys, and thank you all for attending today's webinar. As a reminder, the recording link for today's session will be emailed to all attendees 24 to 48 hours post-event. If you did enjoy today's session and would like to hear more, we do offer new webinars weekly. Please check our DataVox website for more information on upcoming sessions. And as always, we would love to hear your feedback on our events. Once this webinar has ended, you will be redirected to a survey page. If you could please take a moment to complete the survey before closing out your browser, we would greatly appreciate it. That concludes our session for today. Thank you again to Pat and Tom and Singlewire for a great presentation, and thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.